It started with a letter, one that didn't have a return address or a stamp, just my name written on the front in shaky black ink. I found it on my doorstep early one Friday morning, half hidden in the pile of damp leaves that had blown in overnight. I thought it was junk at first, something blown off a neighbor's porch maybe, but when I picked it up, something about it felt off. The paper was cold, not just from the morning air, but unnaturally cold, like it had been pulled from a freezer. I tore it open, curious more than anything. Inside, there was a single piece of paper, crumpled like it had been through someone's hands a dozen times before it reached mine. On it, in the same shaky handwriting, were 4 words that made my stomach twist: "You have been chosen." That was it. No explanation, no signature. Just those words. I glanced around the empty street, hoping to see anyone who could have left it. But the only thing I saw was the wind stirring the leaves on the sidewalk. I wasn't scared, not then. Just puzzled. People pulled pranks all the time. But something about this didn't feel like a prank. I didn't tell anyone about the letter. Instead, I tossed it in the trash, telling myself it was nothing, and went about my day. By nightfall, I had nearly forgotten about it. I was sitting in my living room, the TV humming softly in the background, the dull blue glow of the screen casting long shadows on the walls. It was quiet, too quiet. That's when I heard the knock. 3 sharp raps on the front door. At first, I thought it was the wind again, maybe some branches brushing against the house. But when it happened again, louder this time, I felt a chill sweep through the room. It was an odd time for visitors, especially in my neighborhood where people kept to themselves. I stood up slowly, my legs feeling heavier than they should have. As I approached the door, I could see the shape of someone through the frosted glass panel. Whoever it was, they were standing very still. Too still. When I opened the door, the air outside hit me like ice, colder than it had any right to be for that time of year. But no one was there. Just the empty street and the faint whistle of the wind through the trees. I stepped out, half expecting to see some kids running away, laughing from their hiding spot behind a car or a fence. But there was no one. I glanced down, and there, on the welcome mat, was another letter. This one looked even more crumpled than the first, like it had been shoved into someone's pocket and forgotten about. My name was written on the front, again in that same shaky black ink. I picked it up with shaking fingers, tearing it open without even waiting to get back inside. This time, the message was longer: "You cannot escape. We are watching. Prepare." I stared at the words, my heart beginning to race. I don't know why, but something about the tone felt final. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't some sick joke. Whoever had sent this was serious, and they knew where I lived. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed, listening to every creak and groan of the house, every whisper of the wind outside. It was as though the air itself had grown thick with a tension I couldn't explain. Around 3 a.m., just when I thought I might finally drift off, I heard it again, the knocking. I froze, my entire body tense. The knocks were deliberate, each one measured, echoing through the house like a countdown. 3 knocks, then silence. I didn't want to get up. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to stay put, to pretend I hadn't heard anything, but I couldn't. It was like something was pulling me out of bed, leading me to the door. When I reached the front door, I paused, pressing my ear against the wood. The coldness was seeping through it, chilling my skin. There was no sound outside, no shuffling feet, no distant voices. Just that eerie, unnatural stillness. Taking a deep breath, I swung the door open. Once again, no one was there. But this time, there wasn't a letter waiting for me. Instead, there was something worse. Much worse. On the ground, right where the letter had been the night before, was a small, crudely made doll. It looked like it had been pieced together hastily from bits of cloth and string. But what made my blood run cold was the face, or lack thereof. It was just a blank, featureless head, like whoever had made it didn't know what a face should look like. I picked it up, and the moment my fingers touched it, I felt something wrong. The doll was warm, almost pulsating, like it was alive. I dropped it immediately, stepping back and slamming the door shut. For the rest of the night, I sat on the couch with all the lights on, every muscle in my body taut, waiting for anything to happen. But nothing did. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was just a prank, some elaborate joke to mess with my head. But as the days passed, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I stopped going out unless I had to. I kept my curtains drawn, the doors locked, but it didn't matter. No matter where I was, I could feel eyes on me, cold, unblinking eyes that never looked away. And the knocks continued. Every night, at exactly 3 a.m., they came. Always 3 knocks, always followed by the same suffocating silence. After a week, I couldn't take it anymore. I was exhausted, my nerves frayed to the point of breaking. That's when I decided to call the police. Of course, they didn't believe me. They took a report, sure, but I could see the doubt in their eyes, the way they glanced at each other when I told them about the letters and the doll. One of them even suggested that I might be sleepwalking, playing tricks on myself. They left with a polite but dismissive promise to keep an eye on things, but I knew they wouldn't. I was on my own. That night, when the knocks came again, I didn't go to the door. Instead, I sat in the dark, gripping a kitchen knife so tightly my knuckles turned white. My breath came in short, shallow bursts, and I could feel sweat trickling down the back of my neck. And then I heard it. A creak from the hallway. Someone or something was inside the house. My pulse quickened, and I forced myself to stand. I moved slowly, quietly, holding my breath as I crept toward the hallway. The shadows seemed to shift and move, distorting in the dim light, and with each step, the air around me grew colder. When I reached the hallway, I saw it. The doll. It was sitting in the middle of the floor, facing me. But this time, it had a face. A crude, jagged smile had been stitched across its blank head, and 2 dark holes had been gouged where eyes should have been. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at it, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't hold on to. And then, without warning, the doll twitched. Its head jerked to the side, as if it was looking at me. I stumbled back, dropping the knife. Before I could react, I felt something cold wrap around my ankle, dragging me down. The world spun, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in my bed, my body drenched in sweat, the faint light of dawn creeping through the curtains. For a brief, blissful moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. But when I sat up, I saw the doll sitting at the foot of my bed, its stitched grin wider than before. I tried to leave. I packed a bag and drove as far as I could, thinking if I just got away from the house, away from whatever was haunting me, I'd be safe. But the moment I stepped into the motel room, I found another letter waiting for me on the bed. There is no escape. The knocks followed me. The doll appeared in every place I went, always watching, always waiting. I don't know what it wants, and I don't know why it chose me, but I can feel its grip tightening. Every night, the knocks grow louder. The doll moves closer. And every day, I feel myself slipping further away, as though whatever is hunting me is wearing me down, bit by bit, until there's nothing left. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. If you're reading this, it's already too late for me. Maybe it's too late for you too.